In this video I'm going to show you how I like to build my drift cars. Big disclaimer before we get started, there are many different ways to build a drift car. So many people do drifting in Forza, they build their cars in their own way. This is my personal way of doing it. It might not work for you, so feel free to take this as a base and make tweaks and adjustments to make it suit you. So we're looking here at a Vaughn Gittin Jr. style Mustang. This is the Shelby GT 350R. This has got about 850 horsepower in game, when the real car has, I think, nearly 1,000. You don't need to have thousands of horsepower to drift in Forza. I've done videos with cars that have 400 or less horsepower. It's all about finding balance, in my opinion. So let's get started by picking a car. Now when it comes to picking a car to turn into a drift car, I like to pick something that's already rear-wheel drive and already has a decent amount of power. So a lot of people like to go for your typical Silvias and 240SX and things like that. Things like the Mustangs are also very popular. Anything rear-wheel drive with decent power is a good place to start. So I think we're going to go for... let's go for the 2007 GT500. That's 500 horsepower out of the box, which is more than enough. The only problem is it's a bit heavy, so we can just strip some weight out with the weight reduction upgrades. Oh, let's see what designs we've got. There, already a Vaughn Gittin Jr. style paintwork. One of his old ones in here before the monster colours. Alright, we started off the video with a Vaughn Gittin Jr. Mustang, so let's make another one. Go with the stock parts, we don't want any of the homologation parts on there. Right, off to tuning and upgrades. First thing we're going to want to do, platform and handling. Let's get the best brakes we can. We of course want the new drift suspension, which will give us 60 degrees of steering angle. That'll help a lot with throwing big drifts with lots of angle, and it'll also help us catch any slides where we go a bit too far and get too much angle. It's very easy to make a correction and pull the car back in line with this new suspension upgrade. So now we're going to strip out some weight. We can get it down to 3,200 pounds at the moment. Up next, get all the drivetrain upgraded because we're going to put more power into this. And it's important that we're able to adjust our differential and our gear ratios, so we get the best differential we can. As far as tyres are concerned, some people like to leave it just on the stock tyres, some people only go street tyres, some people might only go sport tyres. Don't know if anyone uses race or drag tyres for drifting. Let me know if you do. I've never heard of people doing that unless they've got insane amounts of power. I think we're going to go for sport tyres because I want to build this up to about 800 horsepower. Now the Mustang I showed you at the beginning, I believe it had 335s because that car has big tyres as stock. And even Corvette that I like drifting, it's one of my favourite drift cars. It's incredibly good handling. That comes stock with like 355 tyres, I think. So we can have big tyres, we just need the power to break them loose. So I'm going to go for 325s in the rear. And up front, we'll just grab the 275s. Now when it comes to making power, a lot of people like to do engine swaps. You see people do the V8 swaps into Silvias and so on so much. Some people hate that, some people think it's so overdone. But I mean, there's a reason people do it. You get a lot of good torque, it's a lot of easy power. I think the stock engine in this GT500 is more than enough, so we won't bother swapping to the 5.9 litre here, which I believe is one of the NASCAR engines from Forza 4. Won't bother with turbochargers. I think this is supercharged out of the box. So right, now we'll move on to making some power. First thing I always like to do is cams, so we can rev nice and high. get the most out of our gears. Let's see what we can do with the supercharger. Up to 664 horsepower there. Another big upgrade is the flywheel. You can rev up a lot faster, improves throttle response. And then we'll just focus on making some power. Let's try to get up to about 850. Okay, so that's 845 horsepower. I don't really need to push it much more than that. You can go 849. No, we'll leave it at around 845. So that's the build so far. That's all the upgrades. We've got all of our platform and handling parts. The drivetrain is fully upgraded. We've picked our tires. And we've made a good amount of power. So now it's onto the tune. So like I said before, people have so many different ways of building their drift cars. It's all personal preference mostly. First thing we're going to do is shorten these gears, because we're not going to be hitting 200 plus miles an hour while we're drifting. So we'll shorten those up. Get to a final drive there of 3.4. I think that should be just fine. We can always change it after we do a test drive. As for the camber, this is the stock setup for the drift suspension. -3 degrees camber in the front and -1 in the rear. We're going to flatten that out a bit because we want more rear grip. Some people might be surprised by that, thinking this is a drift car. They might think, oh, you don't need grip for drifting, you're just sliding and burning your tires. Not true. We do need rear grip. If we don't have any grip, when you go to enter a corner sideways, you'll just slide straight off the track instead of pushing the car around the corner, which is what we want to achieve here. So I like to do a bit of toe out on the front, put the caster way up. I think that's all we want to do for alignment. That's about what I'll usually do. The roll bars and springs, will bring the ride height down a bit, but we'll leave the actual spring values as they are. I usually leave those alone unless I test drive the car and something doesn't feel right. Same story with the dampers. I usually just leave those unless I test drive the car and it sucks. Downforce, we don't have any adjustable parts on this car, so we'll leave that alone. Braking, I tend to leave this alone. Might put it a bit more towards the front. Most of the time when you're drifting, you're going to be using the handbrake instead of the foot brakes, so this isn't too important. Now the differential settings. Acceleration, all the way up to 100%. As far as deceleration goes, I've seen people do this different ways. I've seen some people who put it all the way down to 0. I see some people put it all the way up to 100. Personally, I keep it between 70 and 80%, so we'll put it at 75 for now. And that's about it. That's about all I do to my drift cars. I don't change that much because most of them drift fairly well out of the box, so we'll apply that tune there. And now I'd say it's time for a test drive. I will upload the tune at a later date so you can grab it for yourself and see what you think. We're going to take this to Lime Rock, I believe. I think Lime Rock's one of my favourite all-around drift tracks. It's usually one of my go-tos when it comes to testing out cars. As far as assists go, turn everything off. Normal steering because I'm on a gamepad. Some people like to use simulation steering on the controller, but I think it's way too twitchy. And shifting, we want manual with clutch. Right, let's go for a test drive. Okay, so initial impressions. It's very easy to drive. It's got a lot of grip, good amount of power. It's a little bit sluggish when it's changing directions, but it's quite a heavy car. I believe it's still over 3,000 pounds, even after all of the weight reduction we did. So it's a heavy one. We counteract that with a bit more power. We still definitely had room for more power. But other than that, it's a perfectly good drift car. I think this would have drifted straight out of the box even without the upgrades. So I'm quite happy with it. I think I'll have to take this online to see how it does in a lobby against other drift cars. Yeah, it requires absolutely no effort to get this sideways. Alright, so that's it at Lime Rock. I think as this is a more powerful car, I think I might take it to a slightly more high-speed circuit and see how it performs there. Okay, so here we are at the Dubai Mountain Circuit Reverse. This is one of my favourite tracks for testing higher power, high-speed drift cars. So let's see how it does in a more high-speed environment. Alright, that was a full lap of the Dubai Mountain Circuit in reverse. Didn't really have many issues there. I think the main thing on this track is the gear ratios. Fifth was too long and third was a bit too long for the mountain section. Fourth seems good for these sweeping turns. And I think second was just about right for the mountain section of the track. So it'd be nice to have fifth gear here on this much more high speed part of the track. Another little wall tap there. Okay, so I think that'll do. I think that was a good demonstration of how I like to build my drift cars and the two tracks I enjoy testing them on. Lime Rock's definitely suited to lower power cars and more technical drifting. This track is much nicer for the higher powered, high speed cars. So I'd say that this track is good for testing cars with maybe 700 or more horsepower, and Lime Rock's probably the best for cars with under that. Okay, so that's how I like to build my drift cars, and those are the two tracks I like to use for testing my drift cars. So I'll upload this tune. If you're interested, feel free to go and download it. I'll leave my gamer tag in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.